Earth was always there, spinning quietly in its corner of the galaxy. Yet no one in the wider universe thought it mattered. For the great alien empires who stretched across hundreds of star systems, Earth was nothing but a small dot circling a yellow star, too far away and too weak to be worth their time. They had seen countless planets like it, worlds full of noise, conflict, and short-lived creatures who would never rise beyond their skies. To them, humanity was destined to remain trapped on the ground, fighting over land and resources, never understanding the true vastness of space. When alien eyes first passed over Earth, they did not see a threat. They saw a curiosity, a young race barely walking in the cosmic timeline. Their ships had mapped thousands of stars, and Earth was just another file in their records. Some even laughed at the thought of humans becoming spacefaring. Their lifespans were short, their wars petty, and their technology clumsy compared to civilizations that had mastered faster-than-light travel thousands of years ago. To the galaxy, Earth was a minor world, unimportant, unthreatening, and forgettable. Humanity, of course, had no idea they were being watched. They looked at the night sky with wonder, dreaming of distant planets, writing stories about alien life, but always thinking of themselves as alone. While nations fought wars and people struggled with daily lives, far beyond their reach, other species looked down with detached amusement. To them, Earth's people were children playing with sticks while the galaxy wielded swords of unimaginable power. What the aliens did not understand, however, was the nature of humanity itself. They measured worth in numbers, population, resources, fleets, and weapons. Earth failed every test. Its resources were limited compared to richer worlds. Its armies were divided into nations rather than united under one rule. Its technology barely touched the edges of space. But what the empires did not see was something no calculation could measure: the human will to endure, to adapt, and to rise when challenged. At the time, though, none of this mattered. Earth was not considered dangerous, so the alien fleets never stayed long. They marked the planet, noted the species, and moved on to more profitable conquests. To them, humanity was like an ant colony beside a highway, visible but irrelevant. Some suggested it could one day serve as a useful labor force, but never as equals, and certainly never as rivals. The galaxy had its order, and humanity was placed at the bottom. This dismissal became the first mistake. By underestimating Earth, the aliens ensured they never prepared for what would come. They did not study humans deeply, did not fear their potential, and did not bother to interfere too early. To them, humanity's future was already written, a minor world that would either submit or vanish quietly. Yet even in its early struggles, Earth carried signs of something different. Humans fought among themselves, yes, but those same conflicts pushed their technology forward at a pace unseen in the galaxy. Wars forced invention, hardship created resilience, and curiosity drove them to explore further than logic said they should. Where other species accepted limits, humanity always sought to break them. When a mountain blocked their way, they built paths over it. When oceans divided them, they built ships to cross them. When the sky seemed unreachable, they built rockets to pierce it. Still, the galaxy paid no attention. They saw only the surface: chaos, division, weakness. They mistook humanity's growing pains for signs of permanent failure. They thought the noise of human history would end in silence before it ever reached the stars. And in those quiet judgments, the fate of empires was unknowingly sealed. For Earth, being dismissed gave it time. Time to grow without interference. Time to dream without being crushed by greater powers. Time to make mistakes, learn, and rise again. No one tried to enslave them, no one tried to conquer them, at least not yet, because no one thought it was worth the effort. To the empires, Earth was a minor world, a background planet that would never shine in the theater of galactic history. But inside the hearts of its people, something was building. Humanity had always been underestimated, even by itself. Again and again in history, stronger enemies believed humans could not resist, and again they were proven wrong. The same story was waiting to be written on a galactic scale. The galaxy thought it was watching a quiet, unimportant world. What it was really watching was the spark of a storm. The empires, blinded by arrogance, saw weakness where there was hidden strength. They saw division where there was potential unity. They saw a minor world where, in truth, a power was waiting to awaken. And so, Earth turned silently under its sun, ignored by those who ruled the stars. But one day, when the galaxy looked back, they would realize that the little world they dismissed as meaningless would become the very force that brought their destruction. When the aliens finally decided to make contact with Earth, they did not come as explorers or friends. They came with arrogance, expecting obedience. To them, it was not a meeting between equals. It was a master addressing a servant. Their first ships appeared in Earth's orbit without warning. People all over the world looked up to the sky in shock as strange lights crossed the heavens. Governments scrambled to understand what was happening. Was this the end of human history or the beginning of something new? The answer would come quickly. The aliens sent their message in every language they could translate. Their words were cold and commanding. They declared Earth a minor world under their empire's control. Humanity was to surrender its resources, obey their rule, and prepare to serve. There was no offer of friendship, no request for cooperation, only demands. The aliens believed this was the natural order. After all, every other young species they had encountered had submitted quickly. They expected humans to do the same. But humanity did not bow. The leaders of Earth listened to the demands and refused. Some were afraid, of course, but fear did not turn into surrender. For the first time in history, every nation stood together. They sent a single answer back into space. Humanity would not kneel. This answer shocked the alien commanders. To them, resistance was not only foolish, it was insulting. They looked at Earth's tiny fleets of satellites and primitive rockets and laughed. What could such a weak species hope to do? Their empire had ships the size of cities, weapons that could burn entire continents, and technology far beyond human imagination. To the aliens, the humans' refusal was nothing but a delay before inevitable conquest. But what the aliens did not understand was that humanity's defiance came not from strength of weapons, but from strength of spirit. They would rather fight and die than live as slaves. This was something alien empires rarely encountered. Most worlds surrendered to avoid destruction, choosing safety over freedom. Humanity was different. They valued freedom so deeply that they were willing to risk everything for it. The first skirmishes were brutal. Alien ships tested Earth's defenses, destroying satellites and military installations with ease. Their weapons were terrifying, striking faster than any human missile could respond. Cities trembled as people realized how small and fragile Earth was compared to the enemy in orbit. Panic spread, but so did determination. Instead of surrender, humanity began preparing for war. Scientists worked day and night, studying fragments of alien technology. Military forces coordinated across nations, sharing intelligence and resources. Ordinary people volunteered to defend their homes, building shelters, organizing resistance, and refusing to give in to fear. For the first time, Earth was not divided by borders. It was united by survival. The aliens, however, only grew angrier. In their history, no primitive species had resisted for long. To be challenged by humans, an insignificant race from a minor world, was humiliating. They decided to make an example of Earth. Their next attack would not be a warning. It would be total domination. But this arrogance blinded them. They underestimated human creativity. Where aliens relied on technology perfected over thousands of years, humans relied on adaptation. Every attack taught humanity something new. Every wrecked alien probe became a treasure of knowledge. Engineers turned desperation into invention, creating weapons and defenses no one thought possible. The first true battle came when a squadron of alien ships entered Earth's atmosphere, planning to seize key cities. They expected fear and quick defeat. Instead, they met resistance fiercer than anything they imagined. Fighter jets, missiles, and even ground-based weapons targeted them relentlessly. Many human weapons failed against alien shields, but not all. A single lucky strike downed one alien craft, sending it crashing to the ground. For the first time, humanity saw that the enemy could bleed. The crash was a turning point. The wreckage gave scientists priceless technology to study. Ordinary people saw proof that the aliens were not invincible. The empire that thought itself untouchable had lost a ship to a species they considered beneath notice. It was a small victory, but in the hearts of humans it was enormous. The aliens, enraged, escalated further. They destroyed military bases, crippled communication networks, and rained destruction on Earth's defenses. Yet the more they pushed, the harder humanity resisted. The invaders had expected submission in days. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a conflict that stretched on longer than they ever imagined. Humanity's refusal to bow was more than resistance. It was a declaration. For centuries, Earth had been overlooked, ignored, and dismissed as irrelevant. Now, with alien ships hovering in their skies, humanity had shouted to the galaxy that they would not be ruled. Their weapons might have been weak, but their will was stronger than steel. The aliens could not see it yet, but something had begun that could not be undone. The moment they demanded Earth's surrender, the moment humans said no, history changed. What was meant to be a quick conquest had lit the fire of a war that would reshape the galaxy. And so, what started as a simple act of arrogance, an empire expecting obedience from a minor world, turned into the first hostile contact. Humanity had drawn a line in the stars. They would fight no matter the cost. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. Humanity had never been fully united. For as long as history could remember, nations had fought over land, resources, and power. People were divided by culture, religion, and politics. Even in the age of space travel, humans still argued and competed with one another. But when the alien ships appeared in the sky, everything changed. For the first time, the people of Earth realized they were no longer only French, Chinese, American, African, or Indian, they were human. And in this new war, being human was all that mattered. The first attacks had been devastating. Satellites fell from orbit, military bases were destroyed, and the world saw just how outmatched they were against alien technology. Fear gripped the planet. Many thought resistance was useless, that humanity would soon be crushed under the power of the invaders. But when leaders gathered in secret meetings, when generals and scientists spoke across borders, something remarkable happened. They began to see that no single nation could survive this war alone. The aliens saw Earth as one target, one species. To survive, humanity had to become exactly that, one people, united. It was not an easy step. Old mistrusts lingered. Some governments worried about losing control. Others feared betrayal. But then came the broadcasts. Images of cities burning under alien fire, families fleeing in panic, and soldiers from different nations fighting side by side against the same enemy. Ordinary people demanded unity. No one cared about borders anymore when the threat came from the sky. The pressure of survival forced the leaders to put aside their pride. Slowly, one by one, they agreed to fight as a single world. A global council was formed, made up of representatives from every corner of the earth. For the first time, humanity had a true voice that spoke for everyone. The council's first decision was clear: share everything. Technology, intelligence, military resources, all of it would belong to humanity as a whole. Scientists who once worked in competition now exchanged their discoveries freely. Armies trained together. Factories produced weapons not for one nation, but for all. It was the beginning of something no alien empire had predicted: unity forged by desperation. At first, progress was small. Humanity's technology was still primitive compared to the enemy's. But by working together, they advanced faster than ever before. A scientist in Japan might find a weakness in alien metal. A team in Germany would turn that weakness into a weapon. Engineers in Brazil would then design a way to mass produce it. In months, humanity achieved what might have taken decades if they remained divided. And this unity was not only in science. Soldiers from rival nations fought shoulder to shoulder, realizing that their differences mattered little compared to the larger fight. Pilots shared tactics. Intelligence agencies opened their most secret files. Even the average person on the street felt it. People donated what little they had to the war effort, volunteered to build shelters, and stood together in ways never seen before. Humanity, once fractured, was becoming whole. The aliens noticed this change. When they first arrived, they had expected to exploit human division to conquer piece by piece. But instead of nations surrendering separately, they faced a united defense. Every time they struck, the humans responded not as scattered enemies, but as one world. What the aliens thought was weakness, Earth's diversity, was becoming strength. Different cultures brought different ideas, and together those ideas formed strategies the aliens could not predict. But unity came with sacrifice. To work together, nations had to give up their rivalries and their ambitions. It was not easy. Some leaders resisted, unwilling to let go of power. But the people forced their hands. Humanity had seen the enemy's fire from the sky, and they understood that survival depended on change. The old world of politics and division was crumbling, replaced by something new. Moments of hope began to shine through. When the first joint fleet of human warships was launched, people across the planet watched with pride. The ships were small and fragile compared to alien vessels, but they carried the symbol of a united Earth. When the first global defense shield was activated, powered by the combined work of countless scientists, it was a sign that humanity could stand together. These victories were not just technical, they were emotional. They reminded humanity that they were no longer fighting alone. The spark of unity lit a fire in the human spirit. Songs were written, stories told, and flags redesigned to carry the image of Earth itself. Soldiers wore patches not of their nations, but of humanity. Children grew up no longer thinking of themselves as belonging to one country, but to one world. In the shadow of war, humanity was finding its true identity. The aliens, watching from orbit, could not understand this transformation. In their empire, unity came from conquest and force. They believed strength meant domination. But for humans, unity was born from choice, from the shared will to survive. This was a strength far more dangerous than any weapon. For the first time, the aliens began to feel doubt. Perhaps this minor world was not so minor after all. The war was far from over, but something irreversible had happened. Humanity had taken its first step toward greatness. They were no longer a collection of nations scattered across a planet. They were one people united against the stars, and in that unity, the seeds of their future power were planted. What began as fear was transforming into hope, and hope was something no empire could ever crush. Once humanity had united, the next challenge was survival against an enemy whose technology seemed like magic. Alien ships could travel faster than light, fire weapons that melted steel in seconds, and protect themselves with shields that no missile on Earth could pierce. At first, it seemed impossible that humans could ever catch up. But humanity had something the aliens did not expect: an unstoppable hunger to learn, adapt, and improve. The first breakthrough came from desperation. When the wreckage of the downed alien craft was recovered, scientists rushed to study it. Every piece of metal, every fragment of a circuit, and every drop of fuel was examined with a level of focus the world had never seen before. At first, most of it made no sense. The technology was centuries, maybe millennia, beyond human understanding. But instead of giving up, humans experimented. They compared the alien designs to their own and slowly began to unlock small secrets. One discovery was how the aliens generated enormous amounts of energy with tiny cores. This knowledge allowed humans to create more powerful reactors, giving ships and weapons the strength they had never dreamed of before. Another discovery came from the strange alloys in alien armor. While Earth could not recreate the exact materials, scientists learned enough to develop new blends of steel and composites that were far tougher than anything used before. Each small step mattered. Each new experiment brought humanity closer to closing the gap. The aliens believed their technology gave them permanent superiority. What they did not understand was the speed at which humans could innovate. In their empire, progress was slow and controlled, spread over thousands of years. Humanity, driven by fear of extinction, advanced in decades what might have taken others centuries. Pressure forged brilliance. Ideas that once sat in dusty laboratories were now pushed into reality. Weapons once thought of as impossible were suddenly being tested in secret facilities. Military industries across the world worked around the clock. Engineers modified missiles to track alien energy signatures. Pilots trained to fight in space rather than just the skies. Naval shipyards began constructing vessels meant not for oceans, but for the stars. The first human-built warships were crude compared to alien designs, but they were a symbol of progress. They showed that humanity was no longer bound to Earth's surface. They were reaching upward, step by step. Perhaps the greatest leap came from reverse engineering alien communication systems. Humans discovered ways to jam, intercept, and sometimes even mimic enemy signals. This gave them a rare advantage, allowing them to confuse alien forces and strike when least expected. The Empire had never faced such tactics before. To them, warfare was about overwhelming firepower. To humans, it became about cleverness, strategy, and using every weakness they could find. Of course, progress came at a cost. Many experiments ended in failure. Reactors overloaded and exploded. Weapons malfunctioned. Brave test pilots lost their lives in unproven ships. But for every failure, there was a lesson learned, and those lessons were never wasted. Humanity built on its mistakes faster than the aliens could understand. Where the Empire saw weakness, humans saw opportunity. Ordinary people contributed too. University students worked on alien code. Farmers donated materials. Factories that once built cars or household goods were transformed into arms plants. Humanity threw everything it had into the struggle. It was no longer just a war fought by soldiers, it was a war fought by an entire species. In a short time, humanity shocked even itself. Weapons that once could not scratch alien shields began to tear through them. Ships that once could not leave Earth's orbit patrolled near the moon and beyond. Defense grids were established in orbit, protecting cities that had once been helpless. Humanity was not yet equal to the alien empire, but the balance was shifting faster than anyone expected. The aliens, watching from afar, grew uneasy. They had fought countless wars before, but never had they seen such rapid adaptation. Other species, when conquered, stayed broken for centuries. Humanity was different. Every defeat made them stronger. Every loss fueled innovation. The more pressure they faced, the faster they advanced. To the Empire, this was unnatural, even frightening. The most important change, however, was not just in technology, it was in the way humans thought. They stopped believing in limits. Problems that once seemed unsolvable were now challenges to be conquered. Scientists no longer asked if something was possible, but how quickly it could be done. This mindset spread across the world, turning fear into determination. Humanity had tasted the future, and they refused to let it go. One of the first true demonstrations of this leap came during an attempted alien raid on Earth's orbit. Expecting easy victory, the invaders were met by the first fleet of human-built starships. Though smaller and less advanced, these ships carried new weapons based on alien designs, adapted in ways the Empire had never considered. Using daring maneuvers and overwhelming courage, the humans fought them off. For the first time, an alien fleet was forced to retreat. It was not just a military victory. It was proof. Proof that humanity could rise, that they could take what was once impossible and make it real. The news spread across Earth like wildfire, filling people with pride and hope. What once had seemed like a hopeless struggle was now a fight they could win. The leap in technology was not finished. Humanity was still far behind the Empire, but they were no longer helpless. They were building, learning, and advancing at a pace that terrified their enemies. And deep inside, the spark of something greater had begun. The belief that humanity's destiny was not to be conquered, but to stand among the stars as equals, or perhaps even as rulers. The day of the first great battle arrived when the alien empire decided it was time to end Earth's resistance. For too long, humanity had delayed what the empire saw as inevitable. They sent a powerful fleet into the solar system, confident that this would be the final strike. To them, Earth was only prolonging its suffering. They believed their overwhelming firepower would crush human hope once and for all. The alien fleet entered orbit with dozens of massive ships, each larger than Earth's greatest cities. Their weapons glowed with energy strong enough to destroy continents. From the ground, People across the world watched the skies in fear, knowing the enemy had returned. But this time, humanity was not the same as before. They had built fleets of their own, smaller and weaker, but fast, armed with new weapons born from both human creativity and alien technology. The defenders of Earth were ready to fight. When the battle began, the aliens opened fire first. Brilliant beams of energy cut through space, destroying human satellites and smaller defense stations. Explosions lit up the skies like burning stars. But the human fleet did not retreat. Instead, they launched forward, moving with a speed and daring the aliens had not expected. Their ships darted through space, using clever maneuvers, hiding behind planets and asteroids, striking from unexpected angles. Human pilots fought with a bravery that defied reason. They knew their ships were fragile, that one hit from the alien weapons could destroy them instantly. But they pressed on, pushing their machines to the limit. Many sacrificed themselves to protect their comrades, charging into enemy fire to create openings. Where the aliens relied on their superior technology, humans relied on courage, teamwork, and strategy. Then came the moment that changed everything. One human warship, equipped with a newly designed weapon, managed to pierce the shield of an alien cruiser. The beam struck its core, and the giant ship erupted in flames, breaking apart in orbit. For the first time in galactic history, a so-called primitive world had destroyed one of the Empire's mighty vessels in open battle. The shock was immediate. Across the alien fleet, panic spread. Their commanders had promised easy victory, yet here was undeniable proof that humanity could fight back. On Earth, people watching from control centers and underground shelters erupted in cheers. It was only one ship, but it was enough to light a fire of hope that could not be put out. The battle raged on for hours. Alien ships destroyed many human vessels, but the cost was higher than they had ever expected. For every human ship that fell, another found a way to strike back. Explosions filled the void of space as both sides pushed their limits. By the end, the aliens, humiliated and bleeding, were forced to retreat. The solar system was still human. Earth had survived. It was more than survival, it was victory. Humanity had stood face to face with a galactic empire and won, even if only by a narrow margin. The news spread across the planet like wildfire. Crowds filled the streets, cheering for the defenders of Earth. Families wept for their losses, but they also felt pride. For the first time, the idea that humanity could win the war no longer seemed like a dream. It was real. This victory became a turning point in human history. Until then, many had believed defeat was only a matter of time. Even with unity and new technology, the enemy had seemed too strong. But now the impossible had happened. A human fleet had forced the Empire's warships to retreat. Humanity was no longer just resisting, they were winning battles. The aliens, on the other hand, were shaken. To lose even one ship to such a young species was unthinkable. In their arrogance, they had underestimated humanity, believing Earth would fall quickly. Now they faced a terrifying truth. This minor world was capable of becoming a real threat. Commanders argued over strategy, empires whispered of danger, and fear crept into the hearts of those who had once laughed at humanity. For humans, the first victory also brought unity like never before. Every country, every culture, every person felt the weight of the moment. They were no longer fighting only for survival. They were fighting for a future where humanity could stand tall among the stars. Songs were written about the battle, statues built to honor the fallen, and children grew up dreaming not of becoming soldiers of nations, but defenders of Earth. But victory came with a heavy price. Thousands of brave men and women had lost their lives in the fight. Families mourned, and the scars of war were clear. Cities still lay in ruins from earlier attacks, and Earth's defenses were far from perfect. Everyone knew the aliens would return, stronger and more determined than ever. Yet this knowledge did not create fear, it created resolve. Humanity had tasted victory, and they would fight harder for the next one. The first victory was more than just a battle. It was a message to the galaxy that humanity was not weak, not insignificant, and not easily broken. A message to their enemies that Earth would never kneel. and most importantly, a message to themselves, that they were stronger than they had ever believed. The story of that battle would be told for generations. The day when fragile ships from a so-called minor world stood against giants and won. The day when hope became reality. The day humanity's destiny changed forever. When the first human victory was confirmed, the shock did not remain only on Earth. The news spread far beyond the solar system, carried by whispers, stolen transmissions, and even the frightened words of alien survivors. The galaxy, which had always ignored Earth, suddenly turned its eyes toward the small blue planet that had done the impossible. For centuries, the alien empire that attacked Earth had ruled with fear. Countless worlds had fallen under its power, their people enslaved, their resources drained, their cultures broken. Most species had stopped resisting long ago. They lived quietly under the empire's shadow, never daring to dream of freedom. To them, rebellion was suicide. Defiance was pointless. The empire was eternal, or so they believed. But then came the story of humanity. A species no one had respected, from a world no one had cared about, had stood against the empire and struck back. Not only had they resisted, they had destroyed one of the empire's mighty warships. To the galaxy, it was like a spark in a dry forest. Suddenly, hope began to spread. If Earth could fight back, perhaps others could too. On worlds enslaved for generations, secret meetings began. People who had long forgotten courage now whispered about the humans. In dark alleys and hidden rooms, rebels told each other that the empire was not invincible. The name of Earth became a symbol. Even those who had never seen humans began to say it with respect. The empire, of course, tried to hide the truth. They spread propaganda, claiming the human victory was a lie, an accident, or a meaningless skirmish. But rumors cannot be silenced so easily. Traders spoke of human fleets, smugglers carried stories across borders, and even soldiers of the empire shared their fear in hushed voices. The more the empire tried to deny it, the more people believed it. Humanity had become a legend. On Earth itself, the victory changed how humans saw themselves. Before, they were only defending their planet, fighting to survive. But now, they realized they were part of something bigger. Their struggle was not just about Earth, it was about the galaxy. They were no longer fighting only for their own freedom. They were fighting for every world that had been crushed under the Empire's rule. This idea gave humanity new strength. Leaders on Earth began to send secret messages into space, broadcasting signals of resistance. They told other species, "We fought back and so can you." At first, they received no reply. Fear still held most worlds in silence. But slowly, answers came. A hidden colony of rebels sent thanks. A small species offered information about the Empire's weaknesses. And in time, entire groups of freedom fighters pledged their support to humanity. The ripple was turning into a wave. The Empire grew nervous. For the first time in centuries, they felt instability. Their rule had always been built on fear of their weapons, fear of their fleets, fear of their power. But now fear was breaking. Hope was rising in its place. And hope, once born, is hard to kill. On planets far away, alien children asked their parents about Earth. They drew pictures of human ships and imagined a day when the Empire would fall. Poets and singers across enslaved worlds began to include humans in their works, praising them as the people of fire, the ones who dared to defy. Even in places humanity had never seen, they had become a story that traveled faster than any fleet. But this new fame was dangerous too. The Empire decided that humanity could not be allowed to inspire rebellion. They made plans not just to conquer Earth, but to destroy it completely, to erase its name from history. In their eyes, Earth had become more than a planet, it had become an idea. And an idea can spread like wildfire. To end it, they would need to crush it with overwhelming force. Yet the harder they tried to silence humanity, the louder the story grew. Every attack, every act of cruelty, only made the legend of Earth stronger. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see what the humans would do next. Would they rise further, or would they fall under the Empire's revenge? On Earth, people understood this new reality. They were no longer just fighting for their own survival. They were carrying the hopes of countless worlds on their shoulders. Every battle, every invention, every sacrifice mattered more now because others were watching. Humanity had become a symbol of resistance, a light in the darkness of galactic tyranny. The ripple of their first victory was spreading, and it could not be stopped. Some empires began to question their loyalty to the great conquerors. Some species began to prepare for rebellion, and deep inside the human spirit, a new belief grew stronger each day. They were not just defending Earth anymore, they were shaping the future of the galaxy. The Empire had dismissed Earth as a minor world, but now the galaxy called it something else. They called it the beginning of change. They called it the spark of freedom. And soon, they would call it the storm that was coming for them all. The first victory had given humanity hope, but hope alone was not enough. Everyone knew the Empire would return, stronger and more determined than ever. If Earth waited for the next attack, it might be destroyed. Humanity understood a hard truth. Survival would not come from hiding or defending forever. To win, they had to strike back. The decision was bold, almost unthinkable. For centuries, no young species had ever dared to attack the Empire. Most worlds submitted, and those who resisted were crushed. But humanity was different. The same fire that had carried them through centuries of struggle now pushed them toward a new plan. They would not wait for the enemy to knock on their door again. This time, they would carry the fight to the stars. The Global Council debated endlessly. Some leaders feared the cost. Others argued humanity was still too weak. But the voices of the people were clear. They had seen their homes burned, their families taken, their skies filled with enemy fire. They wanted justice. They wanted revenge. And so, the Council gave the order. The first human offensive fleet would be launched. The preparation was enormous. Shipyards across the world worked day and night. Engineers pushed technology beyond its limits. Pilots trained in secret, rehearsing battles against simulations of alien warships. Factories that once made cars and planes now produced weapons for space. It was as if the entire planet had become one giant forge, creating tools of war. When the fleet was ready, it was still small compared to the Empire's armadas, only dozens of warships, supported by hundreds of fighters. But what the humans lacked in size, they made up for in speed, cleverness, and determination. Their weapons were designed to exploit every weakness they had learned from the enemy. Their strategies were unconventional, relying on ambushes, decoys, and daring maneuvers no alien commander would ever expect. Humanity had turned its greatest strength, adaptability, into its sharpest weapon. The target of their first retaliation was a nearby system under the Empire's control. It was not the heart of their power, but an outpost important enough to send a message, but vulnerable enough to strike. As the human fleet jumped into space, every heart on Earth held its breath. This was no longer defense. This was war. The battle that followed was fierce. The Empire's ships were larger, heavily armed, and shielded by advanced technology. But the humans fought with a ferocity the enemy had never seen before. They used hit-and-run tactics, striking quickly, then vanishing into the darkness of space. They overloaded enemy sensors with false signals. They sacrificed ships to create openings for others. Every pilot, every soldier fought as if the fate of the world depended on them because it did. In the middle of the fight, one human commander made a daring move. Instead of focusing on the Empire's warships, they targeted the station that controlled the system. With a sudden charge, human ships broke through the lines, unleashing everything they had. Explosions tore across the sky, and the station, once a proud symbol of Empire power, collapsed into fire. Without its command hub, the alien fleet broke into chaos. For the second time, humanity had forced an Empire fleet to retreat. But this victory was different. It was not fought above Earth, not on the edge of humanity's home. It was fought deep in enemy territory. Humanity had carried the battle to the invader's doorstep and won. It was retaliation, and the message was clear. Earth was no longer just defending itself. Earth was fighting back. The galaxy trembled at the news. On enslaved worlds, cheers erupted in secret. Rebellions that had been whispers turned into actions. Small uprisings began, inspired by the humans. The Empire, once seen as unbreakable, now appeared vulnerable. Its ships could be destroyed, its stations burned, its armies defeated. For the humans, the victory came at a heavy price. Many ships never returned. Thousands of brave souls gave their lives in the retaliation. But their sacrifice was not in vain. They had shown that humanity was not afraid to strike back, even against impossible odds. Every loss only made the survivors more determined. Every funeral reminded Earth why the war had to continue until the Empire fell. The retaliation changed humanity's mindset forever. They were no longer just survivors clinging to life. They had become warriors, hunters, and strategists. They were no longer content with holding their ground. They wanted freedom, not only for Earth, but for every world under the Empire's shadow. The galaxy had laughed at Earth once, calling it a minor world. Now, those same voices spoke of humanity with fear and respect. The Empire tried to dismiss the battle as a minor setback, but deep down, they were shaken. Their leaders could not understand how a young species advanced so quickly, how they adapted to every challenge. Their commanders began to study humans with unease, realizing this was not just another rebellion. This was something far more dangerous. Humanity was not simply fighting for survival, they were fighting for destiny. The retaliation marked the beginning of a new phase in the war. Humanity was no longer waiting for the enemy to strike. Now, they would take the fight to the stars, system by system, battle by battle. They knew the road ahead would be long and filled with pain, but they also knew something even greater. They could win. And as the human fleet returned from its first strike, battered but victorious, the people of Earth stood together, stronger than ever. They were no longer a forgotten world. They were the rising storm, and the Empire had only just begun to feel its fury. The war had changed everything. In the beginning, Earth was ignored, dismissed as nothing more than a small blue world at the edge of the galaxy. No one believed humans could rise against an empire that had ruled for centuries. But now, after years of battles, victories, and sacrifices, humanity had become something greater. They were no longer a weak voice in the void. They were a power that could not be ignored. The retaliation had been the turning point. After that, humanity did not stop. Their fleets kept striking system after system. Each battle cost lives, but each battle also gave them strength. For every human ship lost, 2 new ones were built. For every soldier who fell, 10 more stood ready. Factories burned day and night, building weapons faster than ever before. The people of Earth no longer thought like victims. They thought like conquerors. And the galaxy was watching. Worlds that had been under the Empire's control for generations now dared to dream of freedom. Some joined the humans openly, sending supplies, fighters, and information. Others watched from the shadows, waiting to see if the humans would truly succeed. But even the most cautious species whispered the same truth. Humanity was rewriting the balance of power. The Empire, once so arrogant, was now desperate. They threw fleet after fleet against Earth, hoping to crush them before it was too late. But each time, humanity adapted. They learned from every battle, turning mistakes into strengths. Human commanders became legends, known for bold strategies no alien mind could predict. Their fleets moved like lightning, striking where the Empire was weakest, never giving them time to recover. At the same time, humanity was not just fighting with ships and weapons. They were building alliances. Ambassadors traveled to distant systems, promising freedom instead of slavery. They offered hope to broken worlds and protection to those who joined them. Slowly, piece by piece, humanity was creating something larger than themselves. What began as one world struggle for survival was turning into a galactic movement. The Empire tried to crush this unity with fear. They burned rebellious planets, destroyed cities, and executed leaders. But instead of scaring others into obedience, their brutality only fueled the flames. For every world they destroyed, 3 more worlds turned against them. For every rebellion they crushed, humanity stood beside the survivors, offering strength and revenge. The Empire was bleeding, not just in ships and soldiers, but in loyalty and respect. And Earth, once called a minor world, became the heart of this storm. It was no longer just a planet. It was a symbol. Its name carried weight in every corner of the galaxy. To the oppressed, Earth meant hope. To the free, Earth meant courage. To the Empire, Earth meant destruction. The humans themselves were changing, too. Generations who once only dreamed of reaching the stars were now born among them. Children grew up watching their parents fight in ships larger than cities. Farmers became soldiers, engineers became admirals, and ordinary men and women became heroes. Humanity had been forged in the fire of war, and the fire had made them unbreakable. Finally, the day came when the humans were no longer fighting as an underdog. Their fleets were no longer small raiding forces. They were vast armadas that could stand toe-to-toe with the Empire's might. Their weapons, once crude compared to alien technology, now surpassed them. Their strategies, once desperate improvisations, now set the standard for galactic warfare. Humanity had not only caught up with the Empire, they had surpassed it. The final battles were not easy. The Empire fought with the fury of a beast cornered. Systems burned, stars echoed with destruction, and countless lives were lost on both sides. But the end was clear. Humanity was rising, and nothing could stop it. The last great fortress of the Empire fell after a siege that lasted months. When its banners were torn down and replaced with the flag of Earth, the galaxy changed forever. No longer was Earth the forgotten world at the edge of space. It was now the center of a new era. Humanity had not only survived invasion, they had destroyed the invaders. They had turned weakness into strength, fear into courage, and despair into victory. The galaxy, once ruled by fear of the Empire, now looked to Earth for leadership. But humanity did not claim the galaxy for themselves. They remembered what it felt like to be ignored, to be dismissed as small and unimportant. Instead of building a new empire, they built a council of free worlds, giving every voice a place. They knew the fight was not just for Earth, but for everyone who had suffered under tyranny. And so, Earth became the center of freedom, the world that united the stars. Yet even in peace, the humans never forgot how it all began. They remembered the days when they were mocked as weak, when their skies burned with enemy fire, when survival seemed impossible. Those memories became their strength. They taught their children the story of how a minor world became a galactic power, so no one would ever doubt again what humanity could achieve. The Empire had once laughed at Earth. Now, their name was spoken only in whispers of fear and defeat. The galaxy had a new truth. Humanity was here to stay. And wherever their ships traveled, one message followed: do not underestimate Earth. From minor world to galactic power, humanity had carved its place among the stars. And this was only the beginning.